Hello Epic Gamers! Today we'll be casting an open division match. We'll be casting specifically JasonBlade versus Soup. Red gets right into it. JasonBlade spawning in the north of the map in blue long coats, Bellafeed's long coats, and Soup spawning in the middle of the map playing a civilized yellow with a nice corner base down south. Soup goes into comes in with a single tier 3 in the owl and has some mines for defenses. And goes into a skunk as JasonBlade uses his superior mole skills to not rush, despite clearly having the chance, like low key. At least he would have to sell off the farm, which would give JasonBlade a little bit of a tempo advantage. But that's fine. JasonBlade coming in with a meta deck from the previous patch. This is the most meta deck probably you could have. Going into the boar tier 3 and mole squirrel. Boar is not really used in this patch, but for JasonBlade it's a really good pick in this match because Soup has owl and boar counters owl, at least in relatively low numbers. Boar is counted by Soup's snakes though, so it will be a little bit of a micro battle. Both players warring up to 3 warrants. JasonBlade cleverly sells off his warren and goes into tier 3 right when Soup micros back with the teleport key, bro key. Soup goes into Master 1 instead, which is perfectly countered by JasonBlade skunk pick. JasonBlade goes into skunks of his own, finally. Maybe he chooses to build a mine in this back door. Might have been better to build it on a more central location, like here, for example. That would give him more warning time and has a higher chance of actually hitting the enemy. But I guess it's fine. It's also probably better to build mines on the main path. At least one mine on the high ground. So you have at least a little bit of warning time. Anyway, JasonBlade expanding. And Soup just going into mass tier 1. If JasonBlade macros this correctly, his skunks should be able to defeat Soup's army. But we'll have to wait and see if that's something what will happen. JasonBlade being a little bit too greedy, maybe, going into 2 farms. But looks like it's fine because JasonBlade, Soup, is expanding himself. Both armies are right next to one another. In a Mexican standoff, finally decides to pull their armies back. JasonBlade sells off a squirrel and goes into fast boar. Right when Soup catches up on economy. Soup doesn't scout despite being right here and misses the boar. Goes instead into even more tier 1. If we get enough tier 1, the skunks will not be enough to take them out. So he might have a timing here. If he goes into Supermass Squirrel, he might be able to take out... Soup might be able to take out JasonBlade, but... Soup getting a little bit more pre-skunk. And micros back as JasonBlade is moving all of his army through the Soup's gas. Lucky it only loses like 3 squirrels in there. Could have been a disaster if Soup decided to jump on it. Like that would have been an easy win. JasonBlade's army is still recovering from that damage. But the board is already paid, so Cold Soup is on a timer, 40 seconds away. Cold Soup JasonBlade just has to not to lose his army, decides to push out 15 seconds before his board finishes. Loses his whole army, loses his tier 2, not microing them back. Cold Soup is now tearing through everything JasonBlade has. The pigeons preventing any deaths on Cold Soup's side. JasonBlade just sending his troops into meat grinder. He must micro back at least a little bit so he can build up a force. Finally the boar hits the board, which will give him a little bit of a breather. Cold Soup massing tier 1. JasonBlade mistakes. Now give him a little bit of time to maybe build some snakes or build a minefield or something. So figure out a way to counter this boar. Cold Soup, 1 farm behind. JasonBlade tries to push. Unfortunately, the boar bomb does not hit the skunks, but it is a relatively even army trade, I think. Actually, quite in JasonBlade's advantage. Unfortunately, the mill tanking doing a huge job, wasting all of JasonBlade's DPS, doesn't even die. JasonBlade wastes his advantage, which he got. And now postures in, throws its army away by walking in front of the mill. Doesn't even rebuy or sell the boar or anything. And Cold Soup takes the victory. JasonBlade's mistakes being too much for him. And Cold Soup takes game 1. Let's go into game 2. JasonBlade spawning as blue longcoats in the east. Cold Soup in civilized yellow spawns in the west. Both pairs keep their decks, but Cold Soup does swap out his mines for MGs. Neither player has an easy expansion. This is shaping up to be a 1 base game. Unless somebody manages to cam snipe or mole snipe this campfire, which JasonBlade could easily do, which would give him a 1 food advantage, 1 farm advantage. Fortunately, he doesn't have that part of the map scouted. Let's speed run through the early game. JasonBlade going against into some skunks again, and Cold Soup also responding in kind and getting some pigeons as well. Those worked out pretty well for him the previous game. Ooh, JasonBlade sells off his squirrels or something and goes into camps. This will be a pretty great against Cold Soup's skunks. And Cold Soup decides to expand. Using JasonBlade's investment into his tier 2 and his own defenses. He thinks he might be able to hold this. JasonBlade actually also expands. Cold Soup does not know of this base at all. I guess the best defense is secrecy. So JasonBlade is actually, well, now he's one farm behind. Oh, JasonBlade stuck in the big cycle. Finally dies. Coldsup might almost scout this base accidentally, but doesn't. JasonBlade putting his bar on this, like, relatively exposed location. And farming up even harder than Coldsup. Super greedy right now. His scams were not in the fight at all, but they come in the end and do take the win in the fight, which will allow him to take down the Codsup's base. But Kodsup does at least snipe JasonBlade skunks. This base is completely exposed and Kodsup has no idea it exists. Unless his pigeons scouted it. They didn't, but he scouts it now. And JasonBlade is a little bit out of position. Which allows Kodsup to take this base and even scouts the boar. JasonBlade wisely sells off the boar, but he shouldn't have been able to do that. Shouldn't have to have done that had he had built his boar in his home base. Instead goes into mass tier 1. Not really a bad idea, but he can't afford any of those moles. So he's better off selling them off, honestly. Like really, he has only 4 farms. He will soon be starving. Same is true for Coldsup. Oh, JasonBlade moving right through the gas. The biggest concentration of gas, but still takes the win, thanks to his strong chameleons. Now fighting under the MG, which will give the victory to Coldsup. Well, almost actually. He gets still pushed back, even despite the MG. JasonBlade is a little bit outmatched right now. Coldsup did regenerate enough of his forces to be able to stand, maybe, with these pigeons. Actually, still isn't. JasonBlade somehow still winning. And will be able to take down these 2 pigs. Takes a huge infrastructure damage. Gives a huge infrastructure damage and pulls out. Noticing he has no squirrels left. Not wanting to give Coldsup a huge value from his snake. JasonBlade should really sell off some things, but actually killing those farms is low-key advantageous for Coldsup, because Coldsup can now stop starving. Meanwhile, JasonBlade is on a timer now. Coldsup really wants to stop this expansion from coming up, getting 20 food of value. That's huge in this scraper situation. Oh, Coldsup macroing his snake really well. Still freaking loses the fight though, because snake is like low-key good, but like low-key not that good, I guess. Unfortunately for Coldsup, JasonBlade does manage to make a cam. And actually, Coldsup does surrender, but JasonBlade was only 10 seconds away from starving. I mean, he could have totally teleported back and built a farm, but when you're on 10 seconds, I mean, I would at least wait until your enemy builds a farm before surrendering. I think the starve timer does appear when your enemy is 10 seconds away from starving, so well, maybe he just didn't see it, right? I mean, it was a almost pretty much guaranteed loss anyway. But anyway, both players now on 1 point. Let's go into game 3. JasonBlade staying loyal to his deck, like he's loyal to his faction. The long coats spawns in the south side of the map, and Coldsup changing up his deck once again, spawns in the north. Did he even change it? Actually, I think it's the same deck. I think he always had Owl. He just swaps his MG for mines. Both players have a relatively easy expansion on their backside. No cheese from either player. Straight into 8 farms and warrants. JasonBlade going for mass tier 1 this time, not taking up. Decides to go for an expansion. Meanwhile, Cold Soup is eyeing a tier 2 Warren. And goes into Skunks, which gets immediately scouted by JasonBlade. JasonBlade decides to counter by selling off tier 1 and going into some cams, assuming Cold Soup is going to build Skunks like he did every single time before. And goes into mass tier 1 and buys a single farm on his expansion. Getting that slight eco trickle, which will win him the game if Cold Soup doesn't expand himself. JasonBlade's tier 2 is actually locked behind the food, behind lack of food. And Cold Soup is going into some camps of his own and goes into an expansion. JasonBlade does not scout the expansion. Still thinking his enemy is on one base. Goes into even more tier 2, probably the Skunks, yeah? Finally scouts the expansion with the 2 farms. This might prompt him to get even more food. Cold Soup only scouts one of those farms. And JasonBlade goes into even more camps. Meantime, Cold Soup goes into Owl and cleverly builds this minefield on his edge of the maze. On the edge of his base. It's always annoying when your tier 3 gets sniped, so this will totally prevent any lizard run-bys, mole run-bys. There are no lizards, but theoretically, you know. And it will also warn Cold Soup at least a few seconds of a cam invasion. And I think 4 mines are just enough to kill 1 chameleon at least, so it will give him more time in terms of there being less DPS on JasonBlade's attack. That's assuming JasonBlade even scouts this, which he does. So he's preparing with his own boar, which will come in time because Cold Soup is totally food locked right now. JasonBlade also farming up hugely on his expansion and going into some falcons, knowing they will be really useful against Cold Soup's skunks and chameleons and owl and mice. Actually, they are not that good against mice, but Cold Soup just sitting mainly on. Still supply blocked, does not sell even a single squirrel. Still supply blocked as another camp starts building. Huge misplay from Cold Soup. He could have had that owl 50 seconds ago. And is hugely behind on eco because of this. Scouts the Boar Warren just as it gets built, and both tier 3s start building at the same time. Cold Soup selling off his cams at some point and just massing falcons. scams are actually pretty good against owl. I mean, they two-shot the mice. And when you have mass squirrel, you would really actually want to have some cams to hold off the swarm, so your squirrels can actually do damage. So that's maybe a bit of a misplay for JasonBlade. I'd much rather have a mix of squirrels and cams than squirrels and falcons. I would have at least 4 cams or something. You really want, well, if you're going to have a ground army, you really want to have some, well, looks like Goldsup is trying to push out. Both players actually try to push out, but Goldsup's JasonBlade's boar clears out all the mice. Goldsup's owl is really doing nothing right now. And the boar, with the falcon support, manages to take down all of Goldsup's armed forces. And with Goldsup's eco being so low, he has no chance of recovery. And JasonBlade takes game 2. Really soon, he's really close to taking game 2. I mean game 4, but he takes the second point. It was this game 3 or 4? Yeah, this was game 3. So takes the second point, and JasonBlade is on a match point right now. Will he be able to win? Or will Goldsoup also get 2 second points, so we can have game 5? We'll see. JasonBlade sticking to his meta deck. Goldsoup. Goldsoup deciding to go into boar instead of his owl, and takes mole instead of his signature defense. That's probably for the best, because boar does counter owl, and he has seen JasonBlade build boar in every single game, I think. At least he tried to. Ooh, Goldsoup goes for a sneaky mole play. JasonBlade has no idea this is happening. Goldsoup should be able to take both of these farms. If he moves out immediately, too late. He will not be able to take out the second farm. Huge misplay from Goldsoup. He did not read the Mole Urban's guide to mole rushing. At least gets the... Yo! At least gets the farm sell off. But Goldsoup then retreats foolishly with his mole rush. Right when JasonBlade builds the warren, he could have gotten 60 food there for free. But now any form of rushing will be impossible, as both players are on 8 farms and a warren. Really unfortunate mistake from Goldsoup. He could have gotten way more value over there. Could have pressured all of this for at least a little while. Both players just scrolling up. And JasonBlade goes into some skunks. Those will be really nice along this relatively tight passage. Especially here, he could really pressure Goldsoup with his skunks. There's so much terrain in the way. Goldsoup's squirrels will have no idea what to do. Goldsoup decides to take up as well. Goes into some falcons. JasonBlade also goes into some falcons and goes for an expansion, right when Goldsoup does as well. JasonBlade once again greedily going up. Cold Soup, far more conservative, doesn't buy even a single farm. Decides to scout his enemy first. Doesn't scout the high ground, which means he doesn't know if a tier 3 is building or something, which would make me a little bit worried if I was Cold Soup. But I guess we'll see what he will decide to do with that not information. And he decides to eco up, matching JasonBlade's farms. JasonBlade now. Cold Soup now knows that no sneaky tier 3 is building for JasonBlade. Neither player knows of the other one's secret base. But JasonBlade finally starts building his tier 3. Meanwhile, Cold Soup is just getting more tier 2. Ooh, but Cold Soup does scout JasonBlade's base. And tries for a mole rush. The moles will not be able to kill a pig, but they might be able... Now definitely will be able to snipe down the mill warren. The mill, I mean, just mill. And it will come right in time for the 5-minute mark. And JasonBlade's economy will be in the gutter after this. Really good play from Cold Soup. Really bad play from JasonBlade not seeing it on his minimap. I mean, he does see a yellow dot there, so he should know what's up. JasonBlade also scouts Cold Soup's base. And Cold Soup snipes down JasonBlade's base. What? Cold Soup micros back instead of selling his warrants. Loses like 360 worth of food right over there, which gives JasonBlade a huge army advantage. A minor army advantage. But JasonBlade makes a huge misplay. Instead of waiting for the boar, he decides to push, despite getting a huge eco lead. Cold Soup's camps win him that fight, tanking for the Falcons. And Cold Soup now starts rallying a single boar into the fight. He could have had it all, he could have won if he just waited 15 seconds. Instead, throws the game away. Well, not completely. He still has a chance, the army values are even. But JasonBlade is now starving, he needs to win in 60 seconds. Otherwise, bad things will happen. Cold Soup moving into JasonBlade's army. JasonBlade should have turned back because he has only one base, so he will not win a base race. He knows Cold Soup has a second base and decides to tap out. And we have an even game. Even match. 2-on-2. And let's get into the final game. Let's see who will win this match. JasonBlade. JasonBlade spawning in the east as Bella feeds long coats. And Cold Soup spawning in the west as the yellow civilized. Playing as Archimedes. JasonBlade going into Wolf instead of Boar, which will not help him at all if he decides to push without waiting for his tier 3. And Cold Soup swapping out a few units, going into lizards instead of pigeons. I mean squirrels. And chameleons instead of skunks. Skunks instead of chameleons, I mean. Decides to keep the moles and boar. Cold Soup going for a sneaky, relatively cheesy lizard warren. I'm not sure this does anything. I really don't think it will do anything, but... Yeah, this does nothing. There is a slight backdoor into JasonBlade's base here. He might be able to snipe a pick if he comes from this direction. But the water is pretty annoying here. It will slow down his army by quite a lot. JasonBlade sees that Goatsup has lizards. Will he respond to it in any way? Not really. Goatsup keeps going mass lizard, and JasonBlade keeps going mass squirrel. Finally goes into some chameleons. Chameleons probably a better choice against lizards than skunks. And Goatsup goes into a sneaky tier 3 perhaps? No, just skunks. Ooh, skunks on this corner would be really good at pressuring JasonBlade's base. And on this bridge, defending the enemy while the enemy has to go through the water. It's pretty juicy. And Goatsup decides to expand. Ooh, goes into double farm. JasonBlade sees this. He does have the bigger army right now. But goes into more eco instead. Whoa, huge lag spike. Doubles up on camps. JasonBlade is behind on economy, so he will have to do something here soon. Otherwise, he will just get out macroed. Finally takes an expansion, and just when Jason Goatsup takes a bar, builds a bar, starts building a board warren. That bar will be really good against JasonBlade's squirrels, unless his chameleons will be able to take down the bar. JasonBlade has no idea of the bar's existence. He's able to scout it before it builds, which should give him enough time to do something, to build some falcons. He should totally... Actually, pushing is not that bad of an idea either. He does have quite a big army advantage. And Goatsup's bar is finally paid. JasonBlade is just trickling in, but he will lose the commander if he moves this part ahead. And while he does kind of win the fight, the Meltan King is doing a really good job here. And Goatsup will be able to clean up JasonBlade's army, unfortunately, for JasonBlade. JasonBlade now behind on army value. 15 seconds away from the board completing. Goatsup might decide to throw the game away by attacking before his tier 3 comes out. But looks like his neurons are firing and decides to wait for the board instead. JasonBlade building some falcons, but that's too late, unfortunately. He might be able to hold off Goatsup on this bridge, unless Goatsup just walks around the water, which looks like is something he is doing. Goatsup smartly macroing his bar in the front, toasting down entirety of JasonBlade's army, and he takes the win. Doesn't even lose the bar. JasonBlade taps out, and Goatsup takes the victory. Congrats to Goatsup on winning his match, and see you in the next cast, I guess. Evil out.